Welcome to Idiosyncratic Fables. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Idiosyncratic Fables, where the whole premise is just to get people together and talk about their unique stories that they love sharing about themselves, or a story that just means so much to them, because we are all unique individuals and there are always those subtle differences that each of us carry. Little insight into my studio as what I've been up to. Here we are now, March 20th, 2025. Currently in the studio, or in my booth, I'm recording a nonfiction book called From Chaos to Stability. Kind of interesting, gives you the general overview of neuroscience, but how to focus your chaotic brain activity and make it more stabilized. So pretty interesting from like a Psychology 101 overview, and then switching gears to the books that I'm writing. I'm pretty dang excited. My first book, Wretched Appetite, is now at the 42,000 word mark counter thing. And so we are now over the halfway point threshold. And I think, last I checked, I'm on track to have this guy published before the end of the year. So that's super exciting. I could go on and on more and more about what I've got going on, but I am super excited to introduce my guest for this month, Miss Jess Moran. Jess, thank you so much for being on the show with me today.
Oh, thanks, James. I'm excited to be here with you.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed watching your little oh gosh, help me out. The Substack, right?
Yeah, my Substack newsletter.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
Substack newsletter. I've been reading every single one of those, and it just brings such a joy and just air of delight every time I read those.
thank you. It's been a
What
lot of fun to put it together.
Yeah, what was your inspiration to get those started?
Well, things have obviously been heavy around the world lately, and
A
I
bit, a bit.
just a touch. And I've always been fascinated by others' creative practices and habits,
Okay,
how their creative journeys have been shaped, and also just how it tends to bring us together. I think a lot of people brush themselves off as not being creative, but so many things that they do are, in fact, creative, even if it's not illustrated that way.
yeah.
And I wanted to get at the heart of people's journeys and how they have gotten to where they are today, so to speak. The forces that shape them, the people, the hobbies they had, the hobbies their family members had, the voices that were a part of their lives, and how it got them to where they are today and to where they hope to keep going. And along with that, I think it's also important to discuss creative burnout and what that looks like.
Ooh,
Uh, I think it's important to humanize ourselves, and acknowledge the hard parts too, and how they also contribute to growth.
I love that. Um, it's very rare that a lot of us in the creative world talk about burnout, because it
Hmm.
is very common and we all experience it. I do, probably more often than I care to admit, honestly.
Oh, I do too. Absolutely. Yeah.
Because I know me and my mindset, I just want to go, 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 get it done, get it done, get it done. And then at the same time, on the other end, how much more can I stack on? Because the end result I know is going to be provisions for my family. But at the
Yes.
same time, where is that gap for self care to prevent the creative burnout?
Yeah. It's definitely a constant. I think it's a constantly moving goalpost in a way,
It is.
and it needs to be adjusted based on what you're going through in your own life, the energy that you might have that particular morning or afternoon or day, and recognizing the things that do rejuvenate you.
Mm,
Sometimes it means just taking a break from your own creative practices and watching someone else's creative practices, or learning about theirs or going for a walk. It could just be,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be something grand, like traveling to Italy is wonderful, but not all of us can do that. So
No,
sometimes I just think about being a tourist in my own city and where I can go, and those things help.
good call. We'll have to circle back to that in a minute.
Yeah,
As far as being a tourist in your own city, I like that little phrase. Now, as far as the creative world goes, you are an audiobook narrator, correct?
I am.
How'd you get started in that?
Well, I studied acting in college,
Ooh,
and I then kind of swiftly left it behind. And choices that were young and naive back in the day. And I lived overseas for a few years. I moved back and got married, started having kids, and kind of recognized there's this big chunk of myself that was not being fulfilled.
mm,
And I had been an audiobook listener for years, pretty avid one. And over the course of 2020, my Shakespeare troupe from college reunited over Zoom. And we went through the entirety of Shakespeare's canon together
oh,
every other
wow.
weekend. Yeah, it was a blast. And it really just lit a fire inside of me, is the best way to describe it, of something that I loved so, so much and needed back in my life in some capacity. And, I had my third child in 2021 and was kind of immersed in motherhood. And I was a stay at home parent and figuring out what that was. And around 2023, I reached out to a friend of mine in voiceover. And I finally decided I'm going to do this. I'm going to stop talking about it and dive in. And she connected me. Her name is Jenna Pinchbeck, by the way. She is fantastic. Um, and she connected me with someone who they connected me then with Andre Santana.
Okay.
And Andre
Love that guy.
Santana
He's fantastic.
he is so lovely, very skilled narrator and just a wonderful
Mm,
human. And he took time to chat with me and kind of give me some scoop and some trainings he recommended. And so I just kind of dove in from there. And I am not very good at half-assing anything. So I just kind of went in and um, just started practicing as much as I could and training as much as I could. And I started being very active in Clubhouse and participating in the audiobooks house room. And not many people know about Clubhouse, I feel like, outside of certain industries, but it is still there and it is still very active.
Yeah.
Um, and that's how I also made a lot of connections and made friends. And so really my narrating started primarily with indie authors, and I'm starting to work more with publishers in the last 4 months to 6 months.
Wonderful. That is outstanding.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
So, what would you say your favorite genres to narrate are?
Well, I have been doing quite a lot of cozy fantasy,
Okay.
and I love it. It's very low stakes, but the characters are extremely quirky and lovable and awkward and fun, and that's kind of me, I guess. um, I also recently did a fantasy horror, which
Interesting.
surprised me by how much I absolutely loved it.
Okay.
And it shouldn't have surprised me really, because I have enjoyed reading it in the past. Not so fond of the author's name anymore, but his
Mm,
books are still amazing. Neil Gaiman. Um,
okay.
but his books just completely swept me away for many years. And I would definitely say they're fantasy horror. So,
Interesting.
uh, it, I think I would love to do more, in that genre for sure.
Okay.
And I think other than that, if, it's hard to choose just one, James. I
Yeah.
love stories. I really do. Historical fiction probably would be my other one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantasy horror. I actually know of a real close friend narrator of mine by the name of Griswold Adams. Now, whether that's his real name or not, I don't know, but I may have to go, hey, I know you're into that whole horror stuff. Have you
Yeah.
checked out fantasy horror just to see what he says and go from there?
Yeah. Yeah, it was just it really I was just completely swept up in it the whole time that he
Right.
was narrating it. It was great.
Now, you mentioned love of stories. That's part of the reason why I've got you on the show. Where would you say in time your love of stories began?
So young. My dad took it upon himself to teach me to read. So, um, I think around 3 and a half, 4 was when I was reading, and, um, I think from there, it never stopped. Um, I was pretty much unless I was in school, I was curled up in my dad's easy chair with a stack of books next to me, and I think it says a lot about me that, when I've got my driver's license, the place I was the most excited to go was to drive myself to the library.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. So, like I said earlier, let's circle back to that phrase you used, being a tourist in your own town. Um, in your specific part of the world, what are your favorite nooks and crannies to go to within your own city?
Yeah, well, Virginia Beach and Norfolk and Chesapeake are all pretty close together.
Okay.
So, um, there's a lot of really artsy places.
Mhm.
The Vibe District in Virginia Beach is where there's a lot of murals and kind of hip restaurants and art shops and things tucked away. Prosperity is probably one of my favorites. It's a
Okay.
bakery that is, you would love it because it's full of like sourdough and their pizzas made with sourdough and all
Oh,
these pastries. And it's also full of plants and greenery, so I love going there. Um, and then in Norfolk, there's the Neon District, and that also has lots of murals and art and just vibrancy. Um, there's recently a new used bookstore that's opened up there called Wands Bookstore, like a magic wand.
okay, okay.
And it's really tucked away and hidden, but he's done such a great job at bringing it to life and making it a super cozy spot. And one of my favorite bookstores out there, Eleanor's, is closing down their storefront right now. They're going to be reopening somewhere else soon, but that's one of my other favorite places to go. They have a really active voice in the community and activism, that sort of thing.
Sure.
Um, and I just love to eat. So I could probably ramble on about my favorite restaurants, but that might take a while.
That's okay.
um,
Maybe a second episode to have you come on, we'll just talk about food.
I can easily do that. That's probably
Oh.
another reason I love cozy fantasies because there's a lot of baking and good food.
Well, you might actually like, my first book then because there's a lot of, intricate details with the baked goods the main character has.
Oh, perfect. Yes, I will love it.
Alright, next question. What would you say your favorite book series is to read or genre to read, but not narrate?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, Not narrate, but read. I truly do not know
That's
because
okay.
a lot of the books I read, I would want to narrate. A lot of my books are from predominantly female POVs.
Mhm.
So maybe the business books I read, I don't know if I would want to narrate those so much, but I enjoy reading them for the information.
Yeah, I've asked that question, a few times with previous guests, and I've often found myself, behind the scenes going, "Well, how would I answer that question?"
Yeah, that's a tough one.
It is a tough one because as going through all of the fiction genres, I'm going, "No, I would narrate you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd narrate you. Yep, I'd narrate
Yeah.
that one too." Um, but I think my answer would be very similar to yours. Anything, learning about business or marketing or
Yeah.
stuff of that nature. I'm like, nah, I can easily see my mind wandering off while my mouth is doing the rest of the work because I just wouldn't be connected to the material at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Other types of nonfiction I would be interested in, but I think when it came to certain types of business, finance, economics books,
Yeah,
not so much for me.
no. Now, when it comes to the genre of nonfiction, when I first started this career of audiobook narration 7 years ago, jeepers,
It's awesome.
I swear I remember looking at it, like, a month or 2 ago, "Man, I've only been at this 5 no, wait, 6 years," and then here we are, March 2025, I'm like,
Yeah.
"No, wait a minute, it's been 7 years." Wow,
Awesome, James.
thank you. I never thought I would enjoy nonfiction because, like, the part of my upper lip would curl upwards and be like, "Ugh, I don't wanna do that." But the more I've been given opportunities to narrate that genre, I
Yeah.
walk away learning something new every single time, and I'm going, "Huh,
Mhm.
this isn't so bad. Yeah,
Yeah,
sure,
yeah.
give me more."
Yeah, there's certain I mean, I of course, I have kids, so, I mean, certain types of parenting books I'm gonna be drawn to, and
Oh, of
I
course.
love nature, so I would love to do some more nonfiction on nature.
That'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, let's move into the next segment. Do you happen to have with you a story or a favorite personal story about you that you'd like to share with the audience out there, or even a book you've narrated that you want to read out loud?
I brought a selection from one of my favorite books,
Ooh,
A Tree Grows in Brooklyn.
okay.
So this is a book I've loved since I was a little girl, and, I think you'd probably understand why after I read the selection, just really relate to her, and
Yeah,
her love of story.
you may
Should I
begin
take it
when you're
away?
ready. Yeah, please do. I'm
Okay.
going to mute myself while you do so.
Home at last, and now it was the time she had been looking forward to all week. Fire escape sitting time. She put a small rug on the fire escape and got the pillow from her bed and propped it against the bars. Luckily, there was ice in the icebox. She chipped off a small piece and put it in a glass of water. The pink and white peppermint wafers bought that morning were arranged in a little bowl, cracked, but of a pretty blue color. She arranged glass, bowl, and book on the windowsill and climbed out on the fire escape. Once out there, she was living in a tree. No one upstairs, downstairs, or across the way could see her, but she could look out through the leaves and see everything. It was a sunny afternoon. A lazy, warm wind carried a warm sea smell. The leaves of the tree made fugitive patterns on the white pillowcase. Nobody was in the yard, and that was nice. Usually, it was preempted by the boy whose father rented the store on the ground floor. The boy played an interminable game of graveyard. He dug miniature graves, put live captured caterpillars into little matchboxes, buried them with informal ceremony, and erected little pebble headstones over the tiny earth mounds. The whole game was accompanied by fake sobbings and heavings of his chest. But today, the dismal boy was away visiting an aunt in Bensonhurst. To know that he was away was almost as good as getting a birthday present. Francie breathed the warm air, watched the dancing leaf shadows, ate the candy, and took sips of the cooled water in between reading the book.
Fantastic.
I love that story so
Oh
much.
my goodness, yeah. Oh, I think one of my favorite stories, which I don't have in front of me, and it's the first one to come into mind, is the Hungry Hungry Caterpillar
Yeah.
back when I was just a wee lad back in the days.
Yes. We have, I have to laugh every time I see our copy because it's been through all three of my kids, and one of them at some point chewed on it as a baby. So
Oh.
there's like pieces of the Hungry Hungry Caterpillar missing, which I'm just going to keep that forever. It just makes me laugh every time.
Oh, such good memories with that. Wow. Now, did
Yeah.
you have, like, the giant paper one, or did you have the cardboard, hardbook edition?
The board book. Yeah.
Okay.
So one of my Hungry Hungry babies took a chunk out of it.
Okay. So real quick, I I have to let's
Yeah.
jump on the topic of food.
Okay.
What would you say is your favorite type of bread?
Sourdough
Okay.
with
Do
my neighbor makes a loaf that has jalapenos and cheddar. And every time she brings some over for me, I hide it.
Oh my
So
gosh.
only
I
I can eat it.
I just drooled a little bit.
Yeah, it is so good. I used to bake it a lot myself, but I've haven't had a starter in about a year and a half now. Um, but I know when she makes it, I always text her, say, "Can you sneak
Yeah.
me a few slices, please?"
Alrighty. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this episode up. For those that are tuning in and listening, which now, by the way, I am officially on Spotify with this podcast.
Awesome.
Yay! Um, for those that are listening and you're thinking to yourself, my, I need to get a hold of Jess and find out where I can listen to more of her stuff. Or better yet, if you're an author and you want Jess to narrate for you, Jess, where can they find you on the internet and social medias?
Absolutely. My website is Jess Moran, Moran, VO.com. I'm very active as well on Instagram at Jess Moran, VO. And you can also find me on TikTok under the similar handle, Jess Moran Narration. I think that's about it. You should be able to find my email on my website, and I'm always, always happy to chat with people.
Outstanding, Jess. Thank you so much for being a guest on the show. You have been an absolute delight just to sit and chat with. I really appreciate you.
Likewise, James, and I can't wait to see you in a couple weeks.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. Thank you again for tuning in for another episode of Idiosyncratic Fables. I'm going to try and do this about once a month. This seems to be my happy zone as far as issuing out new episodes. While I can't guarantee a new episode once a month, that is the goal to shoot for. But at the end of the day, it comes down to, like I enjoy ending every episode, everybody has a story to share, and I want to hear yours. So until I talk to you next month, hopefully, peace be with you.